Welcome to this week's Sort of Insight. During this week's show, we're going to talk about three topics. The first one's going to be the growing threat to local democracy in Armenia. Then we're going to move on and discuss the appointment of Arpine Sargsyan as the new interior minister for the country. And then we're going to close with some updates about the illegal detention of Ruben Balayan and the other Armenian hostages in Baku. On the issue of local democracy, Armenia's second largest city, Gyumri, has actually been without a mayor for more than a month following the resignation of the Balayan alliance. Pashinyan stated that upcoming legislative changes would allow him to appoint an interim mayor in Gyumri. The prime minister stated, I quote, "We will ask civil contract party members and supporters to nominate candidates or self-nominate. I will appoint the winning candidate as Gyumri's acting mayor, who will be likely our mayoral candidate in the upcoming city elections." The prime minister's decision to hold preliminary elections, which is sort of the equivalent of what they call a primary election in the West, is a way to actually avoid general local elections, which they're likely to lose. Gyumri, obviously, is actually not an isolated case. We've had multiple cases like this over the 4 or 5 years. In December of 21, the Mamikon-Aslanyan alliance won the most votes in the Vanadzor elections. 10 days later, the alliance leader and the incumbent mayor were arrested. Eventually, the prime minister appointed someone with a criminal record as the mayor of the Armenia's third largest city. In Alaverdi, Arkady Tamazyan, the member of the Country of Living Party, and the city's mayor, was removed from office in December of 23 and under prolonged pressure. He was replaced by a civil contract member, which is the prime minister's party. When obviously, most notably in December of 21, the prime minister and his party actually removed Yerevan's acting mayor, Haik Marutyan, who was actually at the time quite a popular mayor for essentially not actively supporting him during the 21 elections. This actually extends to even local villages and smaller municipalities in which they've intervened to change unfavorable outcomes to the local party, to the ruling party in Veri, Bert, Ahunyan, Sisyan, Barakan, Vartenis, and Maralik. When analyzing this, first we need to acknowledge this is actually a complicated issue. It's not entirely black and white because some of the people that were removed in some of these places were not exactly exemplary political figures and obviously had done, illegal things or things that were not within the guidelines of their office. However, none of that is really particularly relevant. What's important is that local democracy is actually the building block of any democratic system for a simple reason, because it's the level of government that's actually closest to ordinary citizens. It's where ordinary citizens can actually have the most impact. Is far more easy to organize to clean your local air and get the streets clean than it is to change a national policy. And in reality, the prime minister should not get involved in these local political scenes outside of supporting his party's candidate, which should be the normal course of action. Now we're going to move on to the second topic, which is the appointment actually a few weeks ago of Arpine Sargsyan as the new interior minister in Armenia. Interior minister is actually a very important position. It deals with things like overseeing the police, migration issues, and other critical matters like that. She actually has a much better reputation than the person that she's replacing. More to the point, which is the topic that I want to discuss, she's actually the fourth female minister out of the 12 ministries that we have, which is the highest number that we've ever had. And she's also joined with the head of the Foreign Intelligence Service that happens to be a woman, and obviously an ambassador to the United States, which is our most important ambassadorship. This government actually deserves credit for actually bringing gender balance to our government, which used to be embarrassingly unbalanced. Why do I highlight this and why is this relevant? Because in reality, competence in Armenia, especially on the state sector, and in fact in any sector, is both young and female. And the more people that we have in such positions, the better. Obviously, you want the most competent people in any given position, but obviously I think the gender balance is actually part of achieving the competence that you want. At the end of the day, you cannot build a competent state or country if you're wasting half of your talent based on outdated and sexist ideas and approaches to problems. Now we'll move on an update about the Ruben Balayan case. This week, the regime in Baku filed 20 different charges based on their so-called criminal code against Ruben Balayan. These charges were all secret, so the public can't know about it, and he actually can't know about it, about what he's defending himself against, which tells you how absurd these charges are, given the fact that even in that fraudulent legal system, they don't want to say what they're charging him with because it's almost likely to be comical or nonsensical things. And if you actually go through their logic of their sentences, they're saying that if he's convicted of these 20 so-called crimes, he will get a life sentence, and we're almost certain that he'll be convicted based on the fact that the judge of the country is actually the leader of the country and not the judge, and the whole legal system is just a farce. In conclusion, what has been the response of the Armenian state and the Armenian nation to this criminality and hostage-taking by the regime in Baku? In short, a damned disgrace. I'm going to start with the state. Where is our special representative in our Ministry of Foreign Affairs that is entirely in charge with dealing with freeing our hostages? We recently had a genocide conference organized by the MFA. Great. There was no mention of our hostages. There has been absolutely no response to these absurd charges against Mr. Vartanyan a few days ago by our MFA. Disappointingly, at the same time, at the OSCE conference, Foreign Minister Arat Mirzoyan made no mention of our hostages or the need to free them, among other things. When you move on to the non-governmental side, where are the photos of our hostages in our airports? So when you get to Armenia, you can see what the regime is doing. We get millions of people that visit this country, some of them quite important. Where are the photos of our hostages by the side of every church? You know, if you go around the world, some of the Armenian churches are some of the priciest locations in every country that you go around because of the wealth of the Armenian diaspora. Where is the international campaign funded by our diaspora organizations or by our wealthiest individuals attacking, demonizing, and making the lives of the Baku regime officialdom and that degenerates family hell when they leave their country? The silence and the lack of action should shame us all. It's time for the state and the collective nation to take responsibility on the fight to release our hostages. Thank you for joining me in this week's Session of Insights.
The credit belongs to the man who was actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds? Who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat.